Good evening. It's Friday, October 30th, 2020, coming to you live from the Lonely Street Media Studios in Yakima, Washington. This is the Best Lamm Sports Show. I'm your host, David Lamm. With me is my son, Parker. Say hello, Parker.
What's going on, everybody?
We are live streaming on YouTube. We are on Twitter at Lamm Sports, on Facebook under the Best Lamm Sports Show, and you can send us an email, lammsports@gmail.com. Please check out our webpage, lammsports.com. You can find links to past shows and the current trivia question on that page. Leave us a message. You can, all kinds of stuff you can do on there. As always, the first part of our show is brought to you by The Range in Yakima. The Range is Central Washington's premier indoor shooting facility at 34,000 square feet. The Range is an all-inclusive facility offering firearm training, retail firearm sales and supplies, full gunsmithing and repairs, custom builds, and Cerakote services all under one roof. Open Tuesday through Sunday from 11 to 7. Go see our friends at The Range, 1701 Garrettson Lane in Yakima. The phone number is 509-571-1449. The Range, educate, equip, and empower. Okay, Parker.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to talk. What we got this week is we got Thursday NFL action and some COVID.
Right.
We're going to talk about the World Series and some COVID. We're going to talk about the Portland Timbers without COVID.
Sure.
And then we're going to talk about NCAA football and COVID.
Sure.
So if anybody can't tell, that's kind of where we're headed. But first, we're going to do our trivia question because we didn't do one last week, and I feel guilty about that. I mean,
you shouldn't. You don't have to give them one every time.
I know, but I think it's that's a highlight of the show.
Well, we got one this week.
So, as always, the Best Lamm Sports Show trivia question is brought to you by Stone Winery in Hood River. Go see them at 3827 Fletcher Drive or the Downtown Tasting Room at 210 Oak Street. Go to stavenstone.com. You can check out gift baskets. For more information, call 541-946-3750. That's 541-WINE-750, or email them, info@stavenstone.com. Stavenstone, wines with personality. Are you ready for the trivia question?
Of course.
Okay. Trivia question is this. Since the NFL realigned into its current structure in 2002, there have been 4 teams with regular season records of 500 or worse that have made the playoffs. Can you name all 4?
Interesting.
Yeah, so that I feel like that's where the NFC East is headed this year. And that's kind of what spurred this on. So I'm assuming these are not one of them. If you're from the Northwest, it should pop into your head immediately. The other 3, it might take a little work. I don't know how good you are. Depends on how good you are at this kind of stuff. If you're a football fan, you'll get it. I have confidence in people. So, are you ready?
Oh yeah.
We're going to kick things off with the NCAA and COVID-19. Currently, there's a game in progress. The Big Ten is playing Friday Night Football. It is Minnesota and Maryland at Maryland. They're about halfway through the fourth quarter. Minnesota is a 38-28 lead. Maryland shot out to a 21-7 lead in the first quarter behind 2 Talia. That is hard to say, by the way. Talia Tagovailoa.
The other
Tagovailoa. Yeah, he threw 2 touchdown passes and ran for one in the first quarter. They were up 21-7, and then 31 straight points by Minnesota, to include 3 Ibrahim touchdown runs. Oh, they were all 2 yards, 1 yard, 1 yard. But take them away any way you can get them. But they took the lead 38-21 at the end of the third quarter. Since then, in the fourth quarter, Tagovailoa's got another touchdown pass. It's 38-28. And last I looked, Maryland had the ball, but we're at commercial right now, and I cannot tell you, to be honest with you. It still says Maryland has the ball. So
sounds right.
We'll see what happens in that game as we go. Far from over. But anyway, what we want to talk about really, to be honest, is Trevor Lawrence and the fact that he had a positive COVID-19 test. He's going to miss Saturday's game with Boston College, and his status for next weekend's quote-unquote big game against number 4 ranked Notre Dame is up in the air at this point because we don't know when he first started showing symptoms. He has to have 10 days from then, and then then have a negative test and have no symptoms without medication. There's a whole bunch of things going on there. But
Yeah, up until they say, "Oh, it was a false positive."
and you feel like that's the way everybody covers everything, but you'd have to have some sort of negative test to back it up, wouldn't you?
I mean, you would think, right?
You would
Or
hope.
you'd have to manufacture a negative test.
Whoa, simmer down.
Oh, are you trying to tell me that they're going to rush Trevor Lawrence back in
I
time to play their maybe only ranked game of the season?
I
Yeah, I think it's
I
going to
can't
happen.
believe that you're trying to say there's something fishy in the NCAA.
Not just in the see, the NCAA has their hands pretty off of most of this stuff.
It's true.
This is more conference related.
It's run by the conference. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
It is. Is this a big enough deal? If for some reason he misses the Notre Dame game, is this a big enough deal to cause the NCAA to step back and go, wait a minute, what are we doing?
No.
No. So that the best player in college football is going to miss 2 games, maybe 1 game for sure, maybe 2. Let's say he misses 2 to include a marquee 1 versus 4 matchup, and that's not enough for the NCAA to say maybe we're doing this wrong.
Nope.
Okay.
Not enough. Not enough
What would it take?
because somebody dying. Trevor Lawrence has to die. Nick Saban has to die. Somebody important has to die. And I'm not talking about, and with no offense to anybody, a practice squad member from a D3 school. I'm not talking about anybody from less than D1, really, because it's not going to make enough of a headline. Somebody important, influential, essential has to die. Because otherwise, there's too much money, there's too much TV money, there's too much, for some of these games where players or people are allowed to go to the stadium. There's just too much. It won't happen. And unfortunately, Trevor Lawrence sitting out a game isn't going to change the fact that they have a pretty competent backup quarterback who came in and managed it when he looked like he got hurt a little earlier this year. It was only a couple plays, but he did all right. And the rest of their team is fantastic. It's still a big matchup with or without Trevor Lawrence. It just loses a little bit of its thing, a little bit of its edge.
So here's my question: how bad will it look for the ACC if their number one team, their best team, supposedly loses to a team that it doesn't even really belong in their conference?
It's their fourth best team.
And doesn't I mean they aren't even in their conference officially for football,
right?
But and their best team gets knocked out of maybe playoff contention by that team. I don't know. Don't know if that will
If you
happen.
believe that's going to happen, then yeah, that seems like it's going to be pretty devastating for the ACC. That's not going to happen because Notre Dame is a sham, and everyone knows it.
Okay. Well,
Notre Dame is a fake football team that's meh, and they get high rankings because their high rankings make us talk about 1 versus 4.
yeah. Well, there's a lot of overranked teams right now, so we could.
Well, that's true too.
That's just a thing
Yeah.
right now that we're going to deal with this year because of the situation. But let me tell everybody. Here's what Trevor Lawrence he made a post, a statement. Let's call it whatever you want. And what he said about it, he said, "I have tested positive for COVID-19, and my symptoms have been relatively mild. While I'm following the protocol from Clemson and the ACC, the only thing that hurts is missing an opportunity to be with my teammates this weekend and play the game I love. I hate that I can't be there, but I'll be watching from isolation and pulling for our guys while I wait for the opportunity to rejoin the team. God bless and go Tigers."
Go Tigers.
Go Tigers. Not the GEAUX go Tigers,
Right.
but the regular one.
I wonder what person in Clemson's social media team typed that up for him.
It does sound very professional.
It does sound too professional for a 20-year-old.
Well, okay, so long story short, also happening now, Wisconsin had a major outbreak on their football team to include their quarterback, Graham Mertz, and their backup quarterback, and their head coach, Paul Christ. There's 12 players in all, plus at least the head coach. They're going to postpone their game this weekend against Nebraska. So they're already missing a game. And I don't know if I didn't look at the Big Ten schedule that deep to see if they have a built-in bye week that they can reschedule.
They do not.
They do not. So I don't know how they're going to get that done. Obviously, they're not.
They're not. It's not postponed. It's canceled.
Well, that's not what you see. That's not officially.
That's the official designation. I heard.
What I see is that it says postponed. But if it's canceled, okay, fine. If it's canceled, so now you got 2 teams that are supposed to play each other in the same division, right? And it's a divisional game, and they're not even going to get a chance to play each other. So how is that going to be fair if everybody else has to play an extra game, again, we're talking about fairness and equal, and everybody has to do the same thing in order for it to be legitimately equal. Because if not everybody plays the same amount of games with the same teams even in the division. I mean, I'm not even talking about like playing the same teams in a non-conference schedule. I'm talking about in your own division, you have to play the same teams. Everybody plays everybody in the division. That's how it's always been forever and ever. But this is clearly not going to happen this year. And now what do you do? How do you compare two teams if they didn't play the same teams?
Well, what is it all for? What are you comparing them for? To get to the playoff?
Sure. What if
Right. So is Wisconsin in your playoff picture? More funny, is Nebraska in your playoff picture?
Wisconsin is always in the playoff picture until they play in the Big Ten championship game.
Well, until they play in the Big Ten and then lose to Ohio State.
Correct.
And then they're right out of it. Wisconsin is not in my playoff picture, which means what you're talking about here is a bowl game. So how fair is it that they get to play in the Kraft Mac and Cheese Bowl versus having to play in the Holiday Bowl with one less game?
Well, there should be a Kraft Mac and Cheese Bowl, first of all.
There used to be. Oh, it was the Kraft Fight Hunger Bowl.
Fight Hunger Bowl
is what it was.
Yeah.
But it's essentially, I call it the Mac and Cheese Bowl.
It should be. Played on yellow turf? Yeah, absolutely.
Played on. Oh, my goodness. You're onto something.
I know.
But yeah, it doesn't matter. It does not matter because it's not one of those big teams. It's not one of those big names. You can say Wisconsin's a big team, but I'm talking about big picture big teams. There's only like 5 of them, and they're not one of them.
So let's talk. Okay, so let's move our focus here to Nebraska.
Sure.
Finding out that they can't play against Wisconsin because Wisconsin, through no fault of their own, Nebraska hasn't done anything wrong. Nebraska wants to go out and schedule UT Chattanooga, who said, "Hey, we'll play anybody anywhere."
Right. They're all game for it.
And the Big Ten said no.
Right. Of course, the Big Ten. And then Paul Feinbaum decided that he had something to chime in about the Big Ten. Oh, God, I'm so sick of that, man. He reminds me of the male version of Edna Mode. He has that same kind of look. Big ears, glasses, and sassy as hell about something that I get it. You're pushing your SEC agenda. Move along, man.
Sure. Yeah,
I do not care about what he has to say. But stupid on the Big Ten's part.
For those of you who don't know Paul Feinbaum, if you're listening, I'm hoping you do. But if you don't, he works for ESPN. He's used to be solely an SEC contributor. He was covering the SEC football for ESPN. He has now moved into the more general college football realm, where he's been around forever. But he is 100% completely a SEC homer. No matter
He's
what
been
happens,
drinking that Kool-Aid for a long time.
No matter what happens, the SEC is the best. And by the way, I'm going to briefly, Jake Funk, which I'm going to vote for one of the best names in college football. Jake Funk of Maryland just ran in for a touchdown to tie the game with Minnesota. Maryland, down 38-21, has come back, and it is tied at 38 with 3:38 to go in the fourth. Well, it's 38-37. There's still an extra point to be kicked. But Jake Funk has scored. I like that name, Jake Funk.
It's a good name.
It is a good name. All right, so Paul Feinbaum is called. What do you say about Nebraska?
So he said they're an embarrassment.
They're an embarrassment. That's exactly.
And don't get me wrong, they have not played up to their potential the last however many years, but I don't hear him calling Vanderbilt an embarrassment, or Kentucky an embarrassment, or Missouri an embarrassment, or A&M an embarrassment. He's not going to call an SEC team an embarrassment because they play a tough schedule. It's so tough on them.
Yeah.
But everyone else who gets a game canceled because somebody else, so they're looking to make up ground, because at the end of the year, Paul Feinbaum's going to be the first person to say, "Well, look, they only played 7 games."
All right.
And yes, they played 10. And they're going to be like, "Look, we tried to play an 8th game, and you said we were an embarrassment for trying to do that."
Well, I think more along the lines of Nebraska's been completely against everything the Big Ten's tried to do. They wanted to play football right from the get-go, and they were the biggest complainers of how come we're not playing football. And now it's like, well, this game's going to get canceled. Oh, well, we want another game. We want to be able to go play somebody else. Well, let's change focus of that now to UT Chattanooga. Just for a second, because this is all stringing together. UT Chattanooga belongs to the Southern Conference. The Southern Conference, which is FCS, Championship Series, they have decided to postpone their season until spring. They're going to play a spring football season. So if they're going to play a spring football season, how is it okay for them to play fall football games? Is my question.
Well, just because logistically they decided to play with their conference in the spring doesn't mean that they can't go out and play in the fall.
Well,
I think that might be where the disconnect is. They're playing a spring conference season,
right.
but
So
if
it's
their
well,
players are on campus working out now and their players
well.
are on campus practicing now, why wouldn't you just play?
My point would be this: the SEC is playing a fall conference schedule, are they not?
Yes, they are.
Okay. In March, will they be allowed to play another football game?
Possibly if they want to, I
They
guess.
will not be allowed to play. It'll be against
Oh,
NCAA rules for them
hold
to
on.
play a football game in March.
I do not believe that is necessarily the case. I believe that there are some things in place where they've chosen to do it. And if the NCAA had a problem, they'd step in and say, "No, you guys can't play this football game." The Big Ten wouldn't have even had to say anything
Well,
because the NCAA would have said it for them.
the NCAA is not stepping in because it's football championship subdivision, and they don't care about the
Well,
FCS.
they definitely don't care, but
Right.
also because it doesn't really matter.
Right.
If UT Chat wants to play 2 games in the fall and potentially risk the injury to their players before their season ever starts, that's kind of on them. It's not affecting the big picture.
Well,
Those 4 or 5 teams in the playoff.
My point is, and I guess my question would be, what if, let's say, Oregon, come March, decides, hey, we want to play Alabama. We want to get together and play a football game in March. You think that's okay? And everybody will go, oh yeah, NCAA will be on board with it. No, they're going to tell you it's against rules for you to be practicing or playing or contacting other teams during this period of time.
Too much money at stake.
Because you have a fall football season.
Far too much money at stake. You're absolutely right. That's what I heard you just say is far too much money at stake. The NCAA is going to say no unless they can find a way to get their cut of it.
Oh, they would. They absolutely would. That'd be a
because
huge
that's the most important thing in that moment. The game being played doesn't really matter that much, but is it going to be televised properly through our networks, through our people,
Sure.
and is it going to get the exposure that we want?
Right.
I must say this is the year to do it.
I say, how long before the NCAA just says, yeah, year-round practice? Go ahead.
I don't see why I literally do not understand why they don't let them do it.
Right. Well,
I think it has better playing field.
I think it has something to do with the image, the sham of we're amateurs and these kids are going to school.
Possibly, yeah. They act like that's what's going on, but yeah.
Yeah. All right. It seems like all the way around, there's a lot of this year's going to be all about double standard or changing our mind or doing whatever, and it gets frustrating. I'm a purist. It gets frustrating because I want things to be a certain way, and they're not, and it's hard to get through. It's going to take me.
That's the hardest part of it. That's why people are fighting for their freedom, quote, all over this country. It's because they're purists and they want things to be a certain way, and you're infringing on that.
Yeah.
So these people playing games in the spring, what is that?
You're infringing upon my ability to rely on the fact that spring is for baseball.
Spring is for baseball. Spring's for basketball. Spring's for March Madness.
March Madness, right? See, there it is. Okay, let's just assume that. Let's say Alabama, who drives college football, right, and Ohio State say, hey, we're going to get together and have a scrimmage, a practice game. It's not going to count for anything, but we want to play one on or about April the 3rd or 4th. The date of the NCAA basketball championship. You think that the NCAA would be able to tell Alabama and Ohio State, no, you can't do that? They would.
I don't think they would ever put themselves in that position.
Oh, I know they wouldn't. But I'm just saying that's where you're headed, is to this conflict of you're going to be conflicting with other sports, and I don't. Let's keep our sports in the seasons they belong in and stop screwing with it. If you're going to play,
what the hell, man? You've got 10 sports in the spring.
It's true, but how many of them are on TV?
Each other. All of them nowadays.
Well, kinda.
It doesn't matter what sport it is.
Sure.
I can find a way to watch it.
Yes, on the 6th Pac-12 alternate channel, you can watch Arizona State and Utah play women's soccer. You're absolutely right. But it is not.
Just saying.
It is not televised on CBS or ABC or ESPN. That's what I'm getting at. You're going to have a couple of sports in the spring that are going to be on TV, and softball and baseball. And you might see track and field.
But baseball doesn't even really matter that much.
Oh, it doesn't. No, it absolutely doesn't. It absolutely
not as much as you'd like.
Does not have the luster that these other sports have. It doesn't have the revenue, which means it doesn't have the luster. Although
it's one of the first men's sports to go when a school is considering removing sports. When all the Title IX stuff started to come up, like however many years ago, men's baseball was one of the first sports cut at all schools because it's 30 guys with scholarships,
Yeah.
that's 2 women's soccer teams almost, or a women's soccer team and a women's tennis team that makes that up. You know what I mean? It covers a lot of ground, that amount of that amount of scholarships and that amount of people, and also it draws no revenue because it's a 4-hour event and you have to staff people to work this 4-hour event. If
So
you have 100 people working this event and you have to recoup that in ticket sales just on hourly wages, it's a nightmare.
let me cut in for just a minute because I'm looking at NFL updates that are coming through on this game. By the way, Maryland has the ball back in a
You mean
38-38 game
NCAA?
with
Yeah,
a minute 12 to go in the fourth. But let me just cut in on an NFL updates because I'm seeing some NFL things that are happening here. So it looks like the Broncos had a positive test, had to shut down practice today.
they did. They did.
And they're supposed to host the Chargers on Sunday. Looks
Right.
like the Vikings had a positive test.
Yep.
It is rapidly becoming a thing. We'll see how big and how broad this gets. But as you see, if you watch the news at all, you see that this is it's blooming everywhere. Europe, United States, it's becoming a bigger thing again than it was even probably when it started.
The thing is, it's a little bit of perspective because at this rate, the Broncos will have 2 positive COVID tests for an entire 18 game season, or 17 game season.
That's
whatever.
not terrible.
That's inconsequential. It's you could have 2 guys you're gonna have more guys get the flu than that.
If they're the only 2, you're absolutely right. If
they're the only
it doesn't
2
become
this,
like Wisconsin and they have 12 all of a sudden.
Yeah, hence the at this rate.
Right. Yeah. Well, they'll have to do more testing. That's the same
way for most teams. Is that most teams at this rate are not having any issues. For every one team that you hear about that's had a positive test, there are teams that have not. There are a couple of teams that have not. The Cardinals didn't have any positive tests. The 49ers haven't had any positive tests. There's 2 teams in one division right there with none. The Seahawks, I haven't heard of one from them. Not yet, anyways.
Not
and
yet.
I figured I would. The Rams, I know, had 1. So you had 1 positive test over 3 teams. That's 53 people. So that's 200 and something, 212 people. And you had 1 positive test. That's a pretty good number.
It's pretty good.
At least in terms of the fact that these dudes are slamming their faces into each other on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So yeah, it seems really bad because when it does hit, it usually, if they're not careful, if you're the Titans, it just spreads and you don't care about the rules apparently. Or if you're, Wisconsin, you're not being careful, it's just going to spread. But I am actually more encouraged by how it's gone and the small numbers. Yes, in the real world, it's going ham.
So just a quick update: Maryland still has the football, and what if the play I just saw from their own 45-yard line or so, Tagovailoa was scrambling and literally threw the ball straight out of bounds sideways when it was first and 25. That ball that never crossed. Yeah, that was intentional grounding of the highest caliber. And if they're saying he was out of the pocket, he wasn't. But there's 30 seconds left. It is 2nd and 25 Maryland, and they are not anywhere near field goal range. PJ Fleck is over there arguing a gigantic case. Snapped the ball from about the 46. Tagovailoa from his own 33 throws the ball, and it crosses out of bounds at about the 38. It only went forward about 5 yards, and he was under duress immediately. And tackle box, maybe if there's an imaginary tackle box, maybe he made it a step outside of it. I don't know. That should have been grounding. Anyway, long story short, this looks like it's headed for overtime, barring a miracle for one of the 2 teams.
Awesome, free football.
Let's shift to the NFL. Thursday night's game, right? We want to talk about Thursday night's game, and the Atlanta Falcons found a way to not lose a football game for the second time this year against the Carolina Panthers. So Thursday night's game, the 1-6 Falcons, the 3-4 Panthers played most of the game in a downpour. It was a nasty field. It was slippery.
It's so weird. The NFL cameras, the way they film these things, it did not look that bad until they changed to like that kind of straight on, like behind the defense or behind the offense camera. And you're like, oh wow, that's gross.
Or when they look up at the lights.
Then you see it. But just that normal stadium cam, it's like, oh, it looks nice outside.
You can see that they're wet. But you really can't see the rain coming down on that normal camera. But then when they change the camera angle, you're right. You absolutely go, whoo. So the Panthers looked like they were in control early in the second quarter. Curtis Samuel caught a 29-yard pass from Teddy Bridgewater, touchdown pass to go ahead 14-6. But the Falcons answered with a Matt Ryan touchdown run, a 13-yard touchdown. By the way, it was the 9th of his career. How long has Matt Ryan been playing football?
Oh, what?
Couple
12
days.
years? 13
Yeah,
years?
he tied Troy Aikman. Troy Aikman had 9 career touchdown runs, by the way.
Interesting.
So they did. Those guys who played for a long time, they didn't run for very many touchdowns. What you're seeing nowadays with the quarterbacks running for that's new. That is new. Anyway, Matt Ryan had a 13-yard TD run with 8:02 left in the half, and then a 36-yard field goal from Atlanta as time expired in the first half, and it was 16-14 Atlanta. They traded field goals in the third, and then with about 11 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, Todd Gurley gets a 3-yard touchdown run, and Atlanta kind of puts it away. Bridgewater had to leave the game for 2 series in the third quarter after he took a late hit to the head from Falcons defensive lineman Charles Harris. Harris was ejected for the illegal contact. On the same play, Bridgewater was tripped blatantly. That's what made him fall to the ground to begin with.
Right.
And by Dante Fowler of the Falcons. He had his leg literally horizontal out trying to trip Bridgewater while he was being blocked. He did. He took him down, but as he hit the ground, that's when Harris came in shoulder first and just drilled him in the helmet. This is the second week in a row we've seen a rather blatant, late, bad contact hit. Is it a result of no practice? Is it a result of just, I mean, what is that? What are we seeing? And Bridgewater came back, so he's not, he came back after 2 series, so it wasn't the end of the world. But it's not like the Andy Dalton hit where there was clearly a concussion. You could see it in his eyes that he was out. But I mean, is that a function of not enough practice, of not knowing the rules still, or is it just some guy being mean and wants to lay a hit?
I wouldn't say it's any of those things. I would say it's a moment of undisciplined football. That's all it is. It's not malicious football, I don't think. I think it's undisciplined football. All the time when you get a shot at the quarterback, you should be taking it. When it's legal.
Right.
This is a moment when it maybe was legal for a second, and when you decided to go into your move, you just committed and it was late. These things happen so fast, and we can slow them down to a bajillion times slower and go, oh, he took 2 steps and then crunched him like a taco. Like, this is terrible. But that 2 steps / crunch was 0.5 seconds.
By the way, I'm gonna put that in. I think that's gonna be one of our best phrases ever. Crunched like a taco.
Crunched him like a taco.
I like that one. You should trademark.
But
that.
Yeah, we'll put it. We'll have that be like one of those little audio clips at the beginning that plays. But that's the way I see this. It's just a discipline thing. I feel like the one on Dak or not Dak, Andy Dalton. I feel like that was slightly more. I don't know. That was tough because those 2 teams don't like each other. there's a little bit of that going on, and I feel like they were kind of riffing all night, and that just kind of felt like a little icing on the cake. So that could have been a little malicious.
Could be. But also the Panthers and Falcons are division opponents, and they played each other 16 days ago. So there could have been a little bit of bad blood in there too. Who knows?
I just feel like things happen all the time and it's more often than not. I started my tackle or my hit. Usually it's a hit. You're not tackling. I started my hit, form and started moving in that direction.
Right.
And my brain couldn't catch up with my body.
Yeah, well, that's true. So there's been a lot more injuries and big name injuries. It feels like this year, and I feel like that probably is a result of the lack of conditioning, the lack of practice beforehand, no preseason games, no getting acclimated to playing football again. It's literally just, okay, throw the pads on, let's go.
You're realizing who are real athletes.
Right.
Not guys who are built in an offseason, but guys who are built, period.
But you've had some gigantic names that have gotten hurt. I mean, Dak Prescott, Christian McCaffrey, Michael Thomas. You've had Jimmy Garoppolo, Bosa.
Sure.
I mean,
They're interesting though because most of them are like nagging injuries. You
yeah,
know, the only two major season-ending
they're
ones were Dak and Odell.
well, and and then you had OBJ, and most of them are soft tissue injuries. They're not, like a broken leg or separated a shoulder. It's more of a tear or a strain or a
Jamal
whatever.
Adams has been out for 5
Jamal
games with
Adams.
with a groin injury.
Yeah, there's been a lot of injuries. I feel like will they will the NFL, let's say next year everything kind of goes back to normal and they can start the season on time and they did this year. But I mean, if they can start preseason on time, do you think they'll be? They've always been trying to shorten the preseason. They've always been trying to get rid of games. Oh, it's not important. We don't need that. We need a shorter time. So you know what I mean. But I honestly think they need more time, or they need to actually play those preseason games like a game because they don't play them like a game. You know what I mean? Oh, I'm going to come in here and run 4 plays, and I'm going to go sit down.
I don't think it has anything to do with preseason or your camp. I think it has to do with your offseason. A lot of these guys didn't even know if they were going to play football this year.
And they didn't work out.
And you don't go work out maybe as much as you should, as hard as you should. Maybe you didn't meet with that strength and conditioning guy because he was social distancing, the guy that you've used for the last 10 years in the league. Maybe you can't meet with him this year. Maybe you can't go run routes with, your buds and things like that because everyone's social distancing and you don't want it to get caught on camera. And next thing you know, you're the guys that are out there, goofing around. All of this stuff, it just encouraged this whole offseason, we'll say whole 2020, has encouraged laziness. And
I will agree, by the way.
And I think that's resulting in some unprepared players. There are guys out there who are a bajillion years old, like Larry Legend, who aren't getting hurt. Knock on wood. God, I hope he doesn't get hurt this weekend. But this dude is way older than these young guys who are getting hurt.
Yeah.
What's the difference? Oh, that's right. Because he lives this way all the time, not just when he thinks he has games coming up.
His training regimen is so good.
I mean, it's so good. It's solid and it's ingrained.
It's all the time. Yeah, it doesn't matter if it's a game day or not. He's doing the same thing all the time, and it becomes a habit to stay in shape.
I think there's a lot of guys who it took some time off because they didn't know if they were going to play football.
And that could be. That's something I hadn't really thought about. I guess it's true. When everything was up in the air, some of the guys probably said, "No, we're not playing," and take a little break.
I've met a lot of linemen in my life, and I can tell you this: they're some of the laziest dudes on earth. All right, you don't get that big. Have you ever seen what happens to linemen after they stop? Like after they retire, they drop a whole bunch of weight.
Oh yeah,
it's just being force fed and things like that. Like they're force fed and trained, and feed and train, and feed and train. And so in the off season, they're still eating.
Yeah, oh yeah,
but they're not training. And naturally, the number of holding calls has gone up drastically this year.
I mean, my hands still work, so that's a thing. So Maryland in the first overtime here has the ball. They just threw a ball to the end zone, and it looks like it's going to be pass interference on Minnesota. So it looks like Maryland may have the ball first and goal. It is pass interference on Minnesota. So Maryland's going to have the ball first and goal. They're the first possession here in overtime. So
I like watching a game with actual overtime rules that are good.
Yeah, the NFL overtime is just awful. I do not understand why we can't have a better product. I would prefer than what you have now. I would prefer you go back to the sudden death. Just first team to score. I mean, I understand that the first team that wins the coin toss takes the ball, they go down and score, and no other team ever touches the ball. I get it. But it's that same way now if they score a touchdown. Isn't it?
The problem is that the league is encouraging offense with all of the penalties and the way they call things nowadays, but you're not updating the rules to allow it to be fair.
Yeah, I still think that looks like a touchdown. That looks like a Talia Tagovailoa touchdown scamper. He hits the pylon with the ball, and Maryland takes the lead on Minnesota. They've come all the way back. It's 44-38 Maryland right now. And they're about to kick the extra point, and then Minnesota will have a try. Why don't they settle it with kicks? Why don't they just settle it? Let's just settle it with 50-yard field goal, right?
Progressively moving. No, start at 30 and progressively moving back.
Oh no, I start at 50 and moving back. First guy to make one from 50, right? If you both make it, we'll move back to 55.
Interesting.
Right? Make it hard, but it'll be quicker because if we start at 30, they may just all bang them through at 30 and 35 and 40 and 45. We'll be there all day. Why not start at 50? Because that's not an easy field goal to begin with. If neither of them makes it, we'll do it again, right?
Yeah.
And then we'll go from there. But each of them get a chance.
If we're going to include special teams, then it really should just be whoever gets a punt from their own 30 closest to the goal line without going in.
I like that idea as well. Whichever punter can pin it the deepest without it going
right.
touchback.
And they'll measure two things. It'll be distance from the goal line and distance from the sideline. Let's get that coffin corner.
It's all punt, pass, and kick competition is what it is basically.
I think this is a great idea. I think it'd be more fun to watch.
You have
and not to mention your kickers are going to earn those paychecks.
Or you'll have 3 rounds basically. So you'll have the kicker come out and kick, the punter come out and punt, and the quarterback throwing it as far as he can straight down the field.
And if the game is still tied, then you have the EQ managers come out and run a 50.
I don't know if I'm going to pay to see that, but all right.
Oh, you know you would. It'd be hilarious.
It would be fun. You're right.
It's what's funny though is because EQ managers come in all sizes and shapes. So, Denver's going to trot out this 350, 400 pound guy, and the guy on the other side is going to be super jacked and in shape, former player.
I mean, if you're listening, Roger Goodell, we've got some ideas.
We're working on some stuff.
We're working on some stuff for you. Formal draft later. So let me ask you about Sunday NFL. We're talking about NFL anyway, so let's talk about Sunday's marquee matchup, which is probably Pittsburgh at Baltimore.
Yeah.
Who are you picking?
Well, I have been doubting Pittsburgh all year, and that's not going to stop now. I got Baltimore.
Okay, and despite the fact that Pittsburgh probably has what looks like the best defense in the NFL right now.
They look fantastic, don't they?
Yeah.
I just don't believe that this streak of unnamed wide receiver success is going to continue. Eventually, they're going to run across a team that has cornerbacks
that can cover Chase or Deontay or whoever they put out there.
And they should be fine. The next Megatron, Chase Claypool.
But
okay. I got Baltimore.
Okay, so let me ask you more. New Orleans at Chicago.
Drew Brees can't play outside, so I'm going to say Chicago.
But I would swear you told me that Chicago had been exposed.
Oh, they have been.
That they're a pretender.
Oh, they are a pretender, but it's an up and a down thing. They were down last week. They got shellacked by the Rams, and they're going to step up.
So you think they're good enough to beat New Orleans?
Yes.
But maybe not. Shouldn't be good enough to make the playoffs.
But also, I think New Orleans is good enough to beat themselves. Yes. No. I think the Bucs are going to make the playoffs at this rate.
Every team is good enough to beat themselves. I just want to let that be known.
Well, but people don't realize it, but I've watched the Saints lose in a lot of spectacular fashions as well. Yeah. And the difference between the Saints and the Rams, or not the Rams, the Falcons, is only a couple of games a year usually.
Well, New Orleans manages to do it in the playoffs, though. Those spectacular losses come on the last play of the game.
The Raiders earlier this year and got just punched in the face.
Yeah.
To open, and that was a New Orleans team with Michael Thomas that we thought was supposed to be, the for sure, team to beat in that division.
We did.
I don't trust New Orleans.
All right. So New England at Buffalo.
I think Buffalo's got this one in the bag. New England is reeling.
Do you think that if they change and go with Stidham instead of Cam Newton, do you think they have a chance, or do they just not have enough talent right now? Is this? Let me ask you this: is this answering the question we asked in the preseason, which was it Tom Brady or is it Bill Belichick?
I think a little bit. It's answering that it was Tom Brady, but it's also the first. It's the first season without him. It's the first season with Cam. Very different types of people, very different approaches, all this stuff. So it's the first of all of that. And I don't think they're going to win. I think Buffalo's going to win because I think they're a better team. But I have a feeling that this is all going to be – that this down period for them, for the Patriots, can be short term.
Okay. So just so you know, new update now. So Minnesota has just scored. Seth Green has run the ball in Minnesota's possession in the overtime. It is 45-44. They're on to kick the extra point right now to try and tie it at 45 and send it into double OT. And here comes the snap. The place is good. Kick is no good. It is wide right, and Maryland has won.
Bummer.
45-44. It went wide right. It just was. It never really had a chance. Right off the foot, it went right. And Maryland escapes with their first win of the year, which I'm not sure they had more than that last year. But Minnesota, a team that was playoff talk last year for a while, is 0-2. So
That's tough.
Yeah, it's tough. That's a tough loss too. To lose it on an extra point is. Whew.
We have these neighbors named Deja and Alan, and Deja is the most unsympathetic person towards kickers. she would say, and I can hear her voice now. The moment he misses, cut him, get rid of him.
Yeah,
you have one job, get rid of him. She's that way every time a kicker misses a kick. Just cut him.
I mean, it looked like a good hold to me. I didn't see. They don't show the replay. They aren't showing the hold. But it looked like a pretty good hold. He got it down immediately, and unless it was a laces issue, unless it was a Finkel thing, it was even unless Dan Marino didn't put the laces out, and I think he just blew it. He just pushed it. How do you train all? This is all you do in practice. This is all you've seen kickers in practice at college football. They have one job. That's all they do is kick.
So it's funny because at PSU's practices, it was the really weirdest thing. We had this really good punter named Seth Vernon, super good punter, and then we also had a really good kicker named Cody Williams. And watching them at practice was so interesting because they come out 20-25 minutes before everyone else, so that way they can use the field because we just had one field because elsewise they don't have the field to use. And so they kick and kick and kick and kick and kick, and they bring out a giant bag of balls and kick and kick and kick and kick and kick. And then the whole game, the whole practice, though, they're stretching and working on snaps and things like that.
That's right.
And then at the very end of practice, they would come back out and they'd kick progressively longer punts and things like that. But it was always the craziest thing to me that you have so much time to work on your craft. And your craft, why is it different? I get left and right. Left and right, you have some different things to work with. But up the middle, why is it different to kick a 5-yarder than a 50-yarder? You should be putting the same amount of power, max power behind it both times.
You would think.
You just get good at it. And I don't understand how between, when people botch snaps, you have so much practice at this.
Yeah.
I don't get it. And kickers are the same way. I don't get how you miss it.
Long snappers that's what you do. And I would understand if it was snowing or raining so hard. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with there being a mistake occasionally when that happens. If the ball's slippery, I get it. But you've been practicing with that, so I don't know. Anyway, all right, where were we? So
talked about the Saints.
San Francisco at Seattle. Last game we're going to talk about.
I think Seattle's got this one in the bag. They're looking to avenge their loss to the Cardinals, and San Francisco looks unprepared to handle this season.
Okay. So, and then finally, here's my last question, NFL question. We want to talk about Sunday night's primetime game is 2-5 Dallas at 2-4-1 Philadelphia.
Right.
The Monday night matchup is Tampa Bay at the New York Giants, the 1-6 New York Giants.
Right.
Why is the NFC East featured this weekend in games? And it's the worst division in football. And why couldn't they just swap things around and put another couple teams on there? Why are we not watching New England Buffalo or New Orleans Chicago as the late game, Pittsburgh Baltimore? Why couldn't we just do that? Because I understand what we're talking about here is the Dallas, Philadelphia, New York viewing audiences, which accounts for most of the viewers in the world. But
yeah,
I mean, it seems to me like you could have put two better teams on there and had a better matchup, because I don't want to spend my Sunday night watching Dallas and Philadelphia struggle in futility.
Absolutely. It's going to be frustrating to watch. And it's the weirdest thing, because you watch a Thursday night game, because Thursday night is typically a trash game too, right? Yeah. You watch a Dolphins-Jets game on Thursday night. Scores 27-24. People are like, oh, there was no defense played. This was garbage. On Sunday, you watch a 27-24 win by the Saints over the Bucks, and people are like, it was a tough game. So it's the same score. The same things happened. Yeah. But it's different because of your perception of it. These games can still be entertaining. And I think they will be entertaining. I think that especially the Dallas Philly one will be entertaining because there's divisional implications. You're trying to win a division here still. And despite Philly trying to set themselves on fire, Dallas is also trying to set themselves on fire, and New York's trying to set themselves on fire.
They're already on fire.
Thing.
New York's already on fire.
Well, New York's been on fire for a hot minute, but
many moons.
But yeah, I think that they'll still be good. I think you're right that there are better games that we could get in prime time. However, I think that maybe this is one of those moments where you're like, okay, well, I think as a team you get so many primetime games. I think you're given them. Like you're required to have them.
I would ask you, is this a product of Jerry Jones?
Oh, a little bit.
Maybe his influence on NFL football?
It's entirely possible.
Okay.
I would not put it past Jerry Jones to have had some sort of hand into why his crap waffle team has a great seating for viewing audience.
I mean, we're about to watch your Sunday night. If you're watching that game, you're about to watch a Dallas team that's on its third string quarterback and has one starting offensive lineman from the beginning of the season. And it's not going well.
They're hurting, man. And they seem like a team that has suffered more this year than anybody else. And yes, one of those hits was a little less than reputable.
And if they win on Sunday night, they'll be in first place in the division at 3-5. All right. So I mean, I'm just saying it's kind of second half of our show is brought to you by BossKittyShop.com. Boss Kitty hand-dyed yarns. Go to BossKittyShop.com and you can get your yarns, your notions, your merchandise. You can pick up a gift card. Use the code WearYourMask at checkout. Receive free U.S. domestic shipping on orders of $50 or more. Tune in to BossKittyLive.com at 6 p.m. every Monday and Wednesday and 11 a.m. every other Sunday for yarn craft. They're going to make a project and you're going to watch them knit right on the screen, and it's crazy how good they are at that. And they play games, they have giveaways, all kinds of stuff. It's a lot of fun. It's Boss Kitty, yarn so boss you'll knit your pants. All right, so let's switch gears, and we're going to talk about the World Series, which we didn't really have a chance to talk much about. But let's talk about the World Series. The Dodgers are your 2020 World Series champions.
Yep.
They defeated the Tampa with asterisk. I'm going to say that right now. They defeated the Tampa Bay Rays 4-2, and during Game 6, third baseman Justin Turner was removed from the game for a positive COVID test. In the middle of the game, they went out and said, "Nope, you can't play no more." First of all, I don't feel like that's not a normal thing. Like to yank someone in the middle. Did they get the test back late? Didn't you do that before the game? Wouldn't you get the results back before a game? But I mean, it's right in the middle of a World Series game. That seems weird. Okay, but that aside, they pulled him from the game. But then immediately after the game, after the Dodgers win, you're going to see Justin Turner on the field, sans mask. He had a mask on part of the time, but he also took the mask off to A, hug and kiss his wife and pose for a picture, and pose for pictures with his teammates.
Right.
How irresponsible is that? Knowing your I understand the need to celebrate. I get it. This is, his first World Series. I understand you being excited. At some point, how do you not let it go through your head and say, "I don't want to infect anybody else," and just do the right thing? Is this a product? He gave us, as somebody phrased it, he gave us the most 2020 moment of 2020.
Well, he's a rich white man, so it's not surprising to me that he's being selfish.
Wow.
Yeah, just calling it like I see it, man.
You heard it here.
I work around contractors all day. A bunch of rich white dudes. I can't tell you how many of them don't wear masks. So, yeah, it was a terribly stupid thing to do. He had COVID before the game. They knew.
Oh yeah.
That game was in doubt. They were not sure that they were going to win that game yet. They took him out after they felt like they were secured in their win.
Yeah.
Yeah. He went over 2 in that game before he got pulled, so he wasn't like a big offensive threat or anything like that. But they knew before that game. Right. There will be an investigation into this later on.
Oh, sure.
There will be a whole thing about it. They knew he had COVID, and they only pulled him when they thought, okay, it's no longer an impact.
Can they take away their trophy?
They won't take away the Astros trophy, which I guess would be consistent, though, because what's his name is crazy. The commissioner's crazy. Did you see him talking on the podium?
Yeah.
He's a weird dude, man.
Yeah.
That dude has not been hugged enough or has not met enough people in his life, which is bizarre considering he manages,
Shel-
thousands of athletes.
Sheltered a little bit, maybe.
He is so awkward. And he didn't have a mask on the stage when they were giving out the trophy. And then they cut away to talk to the manager of the Dodgers. And then when they cut back, somebody had brought him one.
Yeah. Well,
It was
sorry, Rob.
he's a weird
Rob
dude.
Rob Manfred has some quirks. Let's just say that. Let's we can leave it at that. But it seems to me that it's um, this whole season has been weird for Major League
Yeah.
Baseball, just in general. And it started with the the argument about money, and then it became a COVID safety. Oh well, we want to make sure that it took them how many months to figure out how to finish their season. I mean, 4.
I actually like the way they did it with so I'll tell you this, and this is a good sign. I didn't even realize it was in a bubble.
Oh, the playoffs, yeah.
I didn't even realize it.
Yeah, they did the playoffs in a bubble, which I think is the only way
It
you can do it.
worked?
But clearly, it
I
didn't
mean,
keep them from getting positive tests.
well, that's because Turner was out clubbing the night before,
Sure.
celebrating that early victory.
It wasn't a very good bubble. The bubble wasn't tight.
It wasn't that tight. Well, where was the bubble again? It was in Houston.
They were in. Well, so part of the playoffs were in Houston. The World Series took place in Arlington, Texas, the Rangers Park. Yeah,
Rangers Park. Yeah. The Costco warehouse.
Yeah, yeah. That is
That's
exactly
right.
what it looks like.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun to have around there. When they put the hockey
Six
players
Flags
up
is-
in Edmonton, they didn't have anywhere to go. That's what their complaint was. Like, there's nothing to go do.
Well, that keeps them out
Yes.
of trouble. No wonder they didn't have positive tests. You can't, man.
There's nothing to go do. You know where I think that they should hold the NFL's playoffs? Let's bubble it and let's put it at University of Montana Stadium. Just up in the middle of nowhere, super cold. No one's going clubbing. The clubs are all closed in the evening anyway. So
Yeah. Well, I think you're going to do that. The only stipulation I say is you still need somewhere with a dome.
I agree.
But
Well,
yes.
I mean, there's a lot of them. North Dakota's, North Dakota State has a dome
Just play in
or
Idaho,
something like that.
at the University of Idaho.
And that old airplane hangar.
Yeah, go to Moscow and play. Anyway,
I would love to see how NFL players would handle, because I've told you about this, but for those of you who don't know, I've mentioned it a bajillion times. I was an equipment manager, and the University of Idaho PSU travels there to play them. The way that their stands are set up is they come over the top of a dugout, and that's where your players sit. So as your players are walking from the bench to the field, there are people directly above you. And they're only like 5 feet from you. So they yell and say all sorts of things. So I want to see what some fragile NFL egos look like when the fans are that close.
yeah, that would be exciting, wouldn't it?
It would be something else. It would be something else. But
so-
yeah.
So, yeah. So anyway, it's super irresponsible of Justin Turner, and I think you're going to see some fallout eventually for the Dodgers and for him. But what are they going to do? Take away his birthday? They can't do that. So
They're not going to do anything about it.
I mean, what are you going to do? Fine him? Okay.
Probably.
They're
going to find him. They'll find the team.
He just made his $250,000 World Series bonus, right? So
Right.
He'll just have to forfeit a chunk of that, but it's not the end of the world. Anyway, I don't know. It seems to me like we need to be better as people. I understand the situation and you're excited and I get it, but you still need to be better as a human being that did not spread it to the rest of your teammate. You know what I mean? And risk the potential of it being spread to someone who's compromised.
Right.
So that's the big thing. I mean, your teammates are all in great shape. I get it. Maybe none of them have any kind of health issues and everybody can survive it. It's mild. But one of them, just one of them, now that they've won the World Series, takes this home with them outside the bubble and gives it to someone, a mom or a sister or a child who's got some kind of compromised immune system, and that's all it takes. So anyway, that's enough soapbox.
Well, other than that, how did you feel about the actual series?
The series was exciting. That game
4.
4. Yeah.
Yep.
The way that the Dodgers
Yep.
the way that the Dodgers Atlanta Falcon that game and found a way to lose when they were leading.
Hey, that's formerly San Diego Charger that game.
Well, you can insert your favorite losing team here. Yeah,
Dallas Cowboys this year.
yeah, whatever. Now it will be probably. I don't know. That was a good game to watch though because the games were all pretty close. It was really
Yeah,
a good
never
series.
really pulled away that much until that final game.
Yeah, yeah.
You never really felt like the Dodgers weren't going to win that game.
Well, and I always felt just from watching it, the Dodgers were always the better team, but they didn't always show it, and that has a lot to do with
Well, that's what happens when you
matchups
have
and
a payroll of
oh yeah.
108 million versus somebody else's
Well,
28 million payroll.
but to be fair, this is their first World Series championship in 32 years, and they've had really good teams with lots of high payroll before, and they still didn't win. So
I don't. They were
let's
saying that a lot, like, "Oh, their first title in 32 years," and I'm like, there were people who died, lived and died
yes,
before they ever saw their team win titles.
yeah,
And there are people right now who were teenagers the last time the Dodgers win it, and in the early part of well, they're like 50s, and watched them win it again. I have no sympathy. I have
I,
no sympathy
I,
for your 32-year drought. It's not 100 years. It's not 80 years. It's not even 50
well,
years.
nobody has one of those now.
Right after the Cubs did it,
The,
it really took it away.
after the Red Sox won and the Cubs won, there are no more 100-year droughts. There's only those teams that have never been there. And
Oh, that's right. Well, that's the drought to me.
but they're young. Those are young teams in terms of the overall Major League Baseball since the 1800s. So
Well, the Mets currently have the longest one. Oh
34.
no, the Indians have the longest one, 72 years.
Didn't the Indians win one in the 90s? I swear they did.
1949 to 2020. The Indians are first, followed by the Rangers, 60 years, followed by the
Well, the
Brewers at
Rangers,
52.
the Texas Rangers have never won one. It was that when they were
Like I said, I still call that a drought.
they were in a completely different town before when they
Yeah,
won.
they were the Senators, right? At one
Washington,
point.
yeah. So I think that's the Washington Senators that won one.
Yeah, Brewers are 52, Padres are 52, Mariners are 44. Again, some of these are teams that have never even,
The Brewers,
you know,
the
lived
Brewers
it.
were the Brewers were close in '82.
Right.
Anyway,
The Mets are at 34 years. Sorry about
34. It's been 34 years. It's okay. I mean, but I have to say though, as a Mets fan, they've only been a team for 60 years, and they've
Right.
won 2 titles, and they've been to 5 World Series.
Right.
So that's pretty good considering the Cubs.
I'm looking at this. I'm looking at this list, and the one that just makes me laugh was the Giants. The Giants had a 55-year drought, followed by a title every other year for about a
Yeah,
decade.
yeah, they were pretty dominant for a while there.
Again, no sympathy.
Yeah, yeah, I know. Anyway, so let's. Last thing we're going to talk about tonight is the Timbers, your Portland Timbers, who still, by the way, well, the Timbers beat the LA Galaxy 5-2 on Wednesday night at Portland's Multnomah Stadium / Civic Stadium / PGE Park / Geldwin Field / Providence Park to wrap up an MLS playoff spot.
You should see the sign out front of that stadium.
Right? It has been all of those things at one point in time or another, by the way. The Timbers are currently tied with their arch rivals, the Seattle Sounders, for second place in the West. They're 1 point behind Sporting Kansas City. The Timbers have 3 regular season games remaining. They play at home Wednesday, or I'm sorry, I want to say Wednesday. I didn't write it down, but I believe no, it's Sunday. They play at home Sunday against the Vancouver Whitecaps in a Cascadia Cup clash, and that game is on ESPN Plus if you want to watch it, as are all of the MLS games. If you pay the extra, what is it, $8-9 a month to get ESPN Plus, you can tune in. The Timbers are a high scoring team, and when they score goals in that kind of bunches, like in 4s and 5s, even 3s, they tend to win, as do most teams. But when Portland scores 1, they seem to score early. They go late in the game, they give up a late goal, and it ends up being a tie. So I think the only way you can feel comfortable as a Timber fan anymore is if they come out and score 2 or 3 goals right away. Just that's what it seems like anyway. But they are a powerful team. This is a team that's going to be very good. Going to be one of the top 2 or 3 seeds in the West. And as you saw in the MLS's back tournament down in Orlando, which they won, they're clearly capable of beating anybody. So, as a Timbers fan, I'm hoping that they can manage to pull out some magic this year and not disappoint us. But
We'll see. I'm not confident in them.
it's always disappointing when you make playoffs and you're that good. You're one of the you're right there within a point of the conference lead, and then you find a way to blow it early in the playoffs and bow out. It's never a good look. But anyway, Timbers Sunday, Vancouver, ESPN Plus. Tune in, check it out. Anything else you want to talk about before we do the trivia question answer?
Nothing I can think of offhand.
I got one more question for you.
Oh.
Masters are coming up. Masters tournament is coming up at Augusta National. It's in November this year for the first time. Normally played on the starts on the first Thursday after the first full weekend in April. That's how you can figure out what weekend it is, by the way.
Sure.
Yeah. And for those of you that have never lived in Georgia, or in Augusta, Georgia, Masters Week is a week off for the schools in Augusta, Georgia. They don't even go to school that. It's like a week long holiday. But anyway, the Masters are coming in November. Who's going to win?
Dustin Johnson.
That's a safe pick. I mean, that's a pretty good pick.
He just won the FedEx Cup, so that's why I'm picking him.
Okay, I think that's a pretty good pick. The Masters tends to bring out some weird play. Some players,
some dude you've never heard of is about to win.
Right, and that happens a lot. And it's a course that, despite the fact that they've tried to lengthen it a couple of times, it's only so much you can do with it.
Right.
It's not a very long course, but it probably has the fastest greens in April. I don't know how they're going to be in November. So it changes
slowly. Slow
the
November
course. If you get a wet, if it becomes a wet November, you could have one of the slowest sets of greens, even though
I like it.
They cut those things short. And I'm going to tell you, I've been to two different Masters practice rounds and walked that course. And if you've never been there, if you can ever get your hands on a ticket, you should go if you're a golf fan. You will love it. It is amazing. The whole thing is well put on. It's a tremendous show. The grass that you walk on in between holes that they play is better than most golf courses you play golf on.
Oh, that's without a doubt.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. You're sitting here walking along. I'm sitting here walking along between two different holes. This no man's land. They don't even play on this part. The ball never comes to this part. It's only spectators that walk through here, and that grass is better than any golf course I've ever played on. And you're just like, this is ridiculous. So it is quite a sight, and it's a lot of fun. And the other thing you don't know that about the Masters is they keep the concession prices low. It's a private club, and when I went, the last time I went was 2000. What was it? I'd say I went in 2008. I went in 2008, and for example, a sandwich. They sell sandwiches and drinks out on the golf course at the concession stand. You can go get a sandwich, a turkey sandwich. It's $2.50.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, and a bottled water or a bottled soda, it's $1. It's not outrageous. You're not paying. You would think we got these people here. They can't go get it anywhere else. We could just charge them a fortune, but they don't do that. First of all, because it costs way too much money to get in. But that to me was one of the best parts about it. Was like, I can afford to eat here because I don't have any money left after paying to get in. Anyway,
right?
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to go with Jack Nicklaus. By the way, I think he comes out of retirement. He's going to win his seventh Masters, his seventh green jacket. He can still do it. I've watched him swing. It's pretty good.
That'll be exciting.
It would be exciting. Would that not be the best news story ever? New sports news story in the history of news stories. He is going to play. He's going to tee off at least because he one of the honorary winners. He'll tee off from the first tee on Thursday, and they let him play that first round if they want to. They're actually, once you win a Masters, you're in for life. You can come back anytime you want and play.
The only way out is a box.
Yeah, that's pretty. Less like a prison, more like a golf tournament. But yeah. Anyway, if you want to come back, you're welcome to come back. So trivia question. Let's get back to the trivia question. Stone Winery sponsors our trivia question. The trivia question was, if you didn't hear it the first time, that since the NFL realigned into its current structure in 2002, there have been 4 teams with regular season records of 500 or worse that have made the playoffs. Can you name all 4 teams that did it. Do you
Since
have a guess?
2002?
Since 2002, there's been 4 teams that did this. At 500, they were either 8-8 or worse records.
8-8. Oh, so not necessarily losing record, even or losing.
Even or losing. There's been 4 teams at either 8-8 or losing record that have made the playoffs.
Okay, I know 2 for sure.
Okay, who you got?
Because I know the Panthers did it a couple years ago.
The 2014 Carolina Panthers were 7-8-1.
Because that division was garbage.
Yes,
it was really, really bad.
So you got one.
I know another one, and it's because of AJ, roommate. Seahawks 2010.
The 2010 Seahawks at 7-9. They had the worst record of a team that's since 2002.
It's because of beast mode.
Yeah, and that
was new.
Yep.
Right, and the only reason I know about it. The other 2.
You don't even need to know the year. I'll take a guess at the team.
Let's go with a crap division. Just because I feel like that's how it's going to happen. NFC East. Crap. That's the crappiest division right now, right? Or no, that's the NFC South. Is that what it is?
The NFC East right now. The Philadelphia,
New
York.
It's the NFC East.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's I don't know. Which of those teams has been worse longer?
Anyway,
I feel like the Jets have been worse for a long time. I'm gonna go with one of the 2 New York teams.
Okay, so you're wrong. So the 2008 San Diego Chargers were 8-8.
Ooh,
and made the playoffs. And the 2011 Denver Broncos were 8-8.
Hey,
and
go Coast.
And won the division. So all 4 of those teams, in order to get in, you had to win the division. Because at 8-8, you're not getting in as a wild card. So, yeah, they all won their division. And here's the other interesting nugget. They all won their first round playoff game.
Oh, yeah. Tebow hit Demaryius Thomas.
There you go. So you
That's
know
right.
the story.
Down the sideline.
All 4 of them won their first round wild card playoff game. And the reason why? Because as a division winner, you get a home game.
Interesting.
They all played at home, despite the fact that they were the worst record in the playoffs.
They had crap records, and they happened to play. Because I remember that year that we played Pittsburgh. So that's that 2011 year. They were really good, but that division was also pretty darn good. So that was tough.
Yeah. So we are going to be back. I want to say next Friday. I'm shooting for next Friday. I think we're going to have a special guest on the show next Friday. We'll see if we can come up with something awesome to talk about. Don't forget, you want to set your clocks back 1 hour Sunday morning. You can do it Saturday night before you go to bed, unless if you're not up at 2 in the morning. That's when you're supposed to do it. I don't know why that has anything to do with anything.
Wait, hold on. You set it at 2 o'clock on Sunday?
At 2 o'clock on Sunday, you set it back to 1 o'clock on Sunday.
Okay, so when I go to bed Saturday night, I need to set it back.
Right. Yeah, it happens in the middle of the night. Why does it happen at that time? I don't know. I didn't research it. So
It's a whole farmer thing.
Someone's going to have to look. It probably is, but someone's going to have to look that up and figure out why we can't do it at midnight. Why does it have to be at whatever time? That's weird to me. But anyway, don't forget, set your clocks back 1 hour Sunday morning or Saturday night if you're going to bed, so you can make sure you tune into our show on time. I mean, it's a little bit selfish, but it's a public service announcement nonetheless.
Huh.
We're going to talk.
Hold on real quick. Apparently that 2 o'clock time was chosen. I just Googled it. It said it was chosen because it was practical and minimized disruption.
Right, because no one's awake at 2 a.m.
Yep.
It also makes it impossible for you to change your manual clock at 2 a.m. because no one's up.
They also said there were the fewest trains running at that time. It's a good thing we live our life by train schedules from the war.
I am totally picturing the conductor with his pocket watch out, winding it back an hour. Right? I don't know. Okay, yeah, that's a good tidbit right there. That there's no rhyme or reason to it other than we think that it won't disrupt anything. Back in 1840 or whenever. We're going to talk more NFL. We'll talk about what happened this weekend. We'll see if Parker's predictions were right, because he's part psychic. I don't know how much. It's not a big part. We're going to talk more NCAA football. See what happens in this weekend, and we'll talk about the upcoming games next weekend. MLS soccer. We'll talk about the Timbers, how they did against the Whitecaps. We'll talk more COVID-19, and we'll tell you what has happened between now and next Friday. And we're also going to talk about the next NBA season and see if and or when we think it's going to start. And I heard a rumor that maybe LeBron James wouldn't be there if they started on time. Like he doesn't have enough time to rest. Right?
Yeah, he's gonna get plenty of sleep time.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
But anyway, we'll keep you informed of all the news that we think is interesting. Hashtag get your own show. Again, we're live streaming on YouTube every weekend. We're on Twitter at Lamm Sports, on Facebook, The Best Lamm Sports Show. Email us, lambsports@gmail.com. Check out the website. If I haven't said Lamm Sports enough, it's lambsports.com. Want to thank our sponsors, The Range in Yakima, Boss Kitty Yarns. One more time, lambsports@gmail.com, www.lambsports.com, Twitter at LambSports. Is that enough? I think I said it enough.
I think you've pretty much well put it out there.
Well, both of our listeners have heard it now. So we want to thank our sponsors, The Range in Yakima, Boss Kitty Yarns, and Stave and Stone Wine Estates in Hood River. This has been a Brain Rock production, a division of Lonely Tree Media, LLC. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you